good. Hi, Joni.
Hi, Polly. Thanks for doing this.
And what do you do?
Hi, I'm Joni Ben-Yisrael. I work as a stagehand. I work predominantly in lighting, but I started out on stage and I've done scenic design, carpentry, I've done costuming, I've done stitching, I've done running props, but almost all of my experience comes out of the theater wheelhouse.
Look at me.
Okay.
Don't count me. How long have you been a stagehand for?
My serious stage handing began in 2002 at a semi-professional level, but I've been doing this stuff since I was 8 years old. When I started at the Kalamazoo Civic Theater, plug for my roots in Michigan, they had a great civic youth theater program, and in order to participate and be on stage in a summer stock show, that meant you had to work backstage on another show, and that is really where it first got its hooks into me.
Mm-hmm. What are your daily job duties like? What do you do on a daily basis?
So the answer in the stagehand world is always this: well, it depends. It's really going to depend on what job I'm doing. But largely, I am usually being a head electrician, what's called a master electrician. I'm the person that the designer interfaces with on site and makes sure their plot gets put up correctly. I've been an extra electrician largely, and that's when you're kind of one of the foot soldiers that the head electrician goes to and says, okay, this is what we're going to do. You guys are going to tackle all the electrics on stage. I'm sending these people out to the house. They're going to work on the house fixtures, and you just jump in and get the job done. I've also worked in scene shops. Before I came to the IA, I worked in carpentry a lot, and I built sets for Opera San Jose, for American Musical Theater of San Jose, now defunct, and several other small theaters.
So I forgot to say this. Try to restate the question in your answer.
Okay.
Okay. What's your favorite show you ever worked on?
Well, a miraculous thing happened to me for the favorite show story. I somehow magically got the Shorenstein run last year of Les Mis, Les Miserables, The Miserables, the operetta, the famous operetta, and it became a force on Broadway in the 90s, and this is when I was in high school, and that show and its score and just the magnitude of the great production, it compelled me to get into this industry for my whole life. So I got to work the 3-week run over at the Shorenstein last summer. It was epic.
What's your least favorite show you've ever worked on?
Probably any split shift call, but particularly split shifts where you come in, you work for 5 hours, then you go away for like an amazing 6 to 8 hours, and then you come back for the loadout because it really kills your day on both ends. Mm-hmm. And we've recently done some great work here in our local to tighten up our contract to get you better compensated for that back half when that happens. So kudos to our leaders for getting those gains for us.
Okay, can we hold for a second? Yeah. I think we need to give me a mic and plug it into your camera.
Oh, I'm getting you right here.
You're getting me?
Oh, yeah.
With a shotgun?
Totally.
Okay, then.
It's right here.
Alrighty,
But
then.
also,
His voice.
are we okay with wood being on the wall?
Yeah.
Great.
No?
I just want to make sure you're okay with it. Because it's kind of funny.
It's a shot.
I know.
It's a shot. I'm great.
Okay.
Great.
Alright. Have you had any injuries, and remember to try and restate the question. Have you had any injuries related to work?
I have definitely had some injuries related to work. Yes, this is a very dangerous industry. There was one time I was loading a truck in a shop, and we were pulling a ladder down out of the truck, and we were on the trail, the rising part. And the buddy who I was getting this ladder off with had me in height and reach advantage, and he pushed a little bit, and my foot slid off the edge of that, and I thought I was going to really go down hard, but he is so strong and much taller, he used the ladder to keep me from falling, but boy did I scrape up that shin something bad on the edge of that lift gate. That's mild. I know people who've been knocked in the head. I've known people who have suffered severe brain damage from getting knocked over in a Joni lift. So this is not a trifling industry in terms of safety by any measure.
What's your favorite thing about being a stagehand?
It's hands-on. I love being a stagehand because it's hands-on. I love it that I'm interfacing with a bunch of different people all the time. And I love it that it's not like you go to the same job for the rest of your life and you're dealing with the same exact people. I really love the bounce for that. I also now, as a parent, love the bounce because it can allow me these little moments that you would constantly have to ask off for in order to go see my kids play or my kids go to the parent-teacher conference or whatever. So the bounce...
Can you explain what on the bounce means for our
Sure, non-stagehanders. On the bounce is a way we describe working from gig to gig. This is very much a gig economy. You get hired for one gig and then you're fired at the end of that gig. And then you're fresh for new employment for the next gig coming your way. And sometimes these gigs will turn into 13 Reasons, for example, out here in Vallejo. And you'll be going on that gig for months on end when on film shoots.
Are you hearing that knocking?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty significant. What you're saying is really good.
Okay.
Please continue.
So on film shoots, we can miss seeing someone for years on end, and then suddenly they're there again. So it all just depends on what each gig is. But I love that spontaneity of it, and that works for you too if you're stuck working with someone who's maybe not your favorite person in the world to work with. The silver lining of that is at the end of this gig, you're going to be on another gig, and your odds are you probably won't be with the exact same person.
What's the longest call you've ever worked?
The longest call I have ever worked is not impressive. I have stories from other people that are far more impressive. But the longest call I worked recently was when Lady Gaga came to AT&T Park. And I started at 8 a.m. on the show day. I was going to be a follow spot. And usually spots walk away, but we were told we were, expected to be there for the out. So I started at 8 a.m. and I ended at 5 a.m. I think the one that topped that earlier was a Kenny Chesney concert, also at AT&T Park many years ago. And that loadout just ran straight on into the next day, another 12 hours. And I came in for the loadout at 9 p.m. And my department was done around 3 a.m. And the steward said, "Hey, do you want to make fistfuls of cash?" And I said, "Hell yes, I do." So he said, "Okay, I'm going to roll you over to Steel and you're going to be here long past sunup." I said, "That's cool. Let me just leave a message for my husband so he doesn't think I'm dead somewhere." And I did. And it was mad money.
How do you deal with the irregular work schedule, especially being a mom and a family person?
You deal with it like anything else. The struggle to manage this strange, always changing schedule as a stagehand first, but then as a parent now, you deal with it a day at a time, like most things. And it's really difficult, and you have to have a good partner who understands and is willing to make those sacrifices. I'm very blessed with a great partner who we trade off for each other as much as we can. And I try to give him breaks when I am home after he's done 3 dinners and bedtimes in a row without mama. He lets me know, okay? And I cover him. And then when I see a big work week coming, for example, in April coming up, we have Google Next. It's going to take over the whole city. I am going to bank ahead and give him nights off so I can try to get that 7 to 10 day run and have supported him ahead and support him after while he holds on to the family unit while I go and try to make $8,000 in a week.
Well, speaking of which, do you feel adequately compensated for what you do?
I feel like in terms of compensation for the work that we do, we could do better. That being said, these wages have significantly increased over time, and I know that the wage slate here in the Bay Area is much higher than at other locals, given just the cost of living out here is very significantly higher than anywhere else in this country except for maybe the East Hamptons. So it is definitely something we can improve on. But that being said, yes, I feel well compensated, especially when I'm at a head rate. The more skills you can get, the more specialty skills, the more available you are for a larger lion's share of the work. And then you can get into those higher wage brackets for sure.
Have you ever experienced any substance or alcohol abuse related to the job?
Me personally, or just around the block?
Either one.
Okay, well, substance abuse in stagehanding. I'm going to try to give you the cliff notes. That shit goes on. It goes on. This is a very hard-working industry. People have to work sometimes around the clock for 2 days. And yes, I encountered substance abuse on jobs through other people at first. And I'm not too proud to say that I myself have had my own struggles with that before I came to the IA. But you have to find a way in which to do the work and remain safe for other people. I think that current day, there is a larger push from not just leadership, but from the ground up for we as stagehands to hold each other accountable and to not take advantage of the safety of our other person, so you can feel a little bit happier or a little bit more attentive or whatever on the job. It's all fun until somebody gets hurt. And
did you feel safe? Do you feel safe at work?
most of the time, but there are times when I am working next to someone, if I can smell something on the breath, you know, it gives me pause, and it makes me go, okay, I'm going to load that file. It's my extra watch your back file, because people, you know, in an effort to stay awake, stay alive, sometimes they'll be then moving faster than is necessary for the job, and that can get you hurt. Sometimes they won't communicate as much what they need to because they're so chatty because of whatever it is they're on. And now we're not talking about the safety and the important things on the job, and that can be an issue. So it's really important for people to not shortchange each other's safety for a high. You know, there was a time when I was young, I was not a mother, I was young in my college years, and that was kind of interesting and appealing. Look, you can go to work and you can have a really fun time, and all that goes hand in hand. It's all fun until somebody gets hurt. And the amount of hurt...
And then it's even funner.
Is it? The mountains of paperwork? Right. You can have endless joke material there for sure, depending on the nature of the accident, but it's definitely nothing to joke about. And I'm really glad to see a groundswell of people being more and more concerned about this as time goes on, because face it, technology is increasing exponentially, and we just don't have time to keep up with ourselves when we are otherwise under some influence. We absolutely need to stay sharp just to stay on top of this job and get out of it without an injury.
When you're asked about what do you do, how do people respond? Do they understand what you do?
People don't get what we do. They really don't. I get this question a lot at like family reunions or whatever, and or just out and about, even just meeting people at a social engagement, somebody's wedding or whatever, and you try to explain what it is you do for a living, and they just can't comprehend how we would, you know, work day in, day out for sometimes 16 hours a day. We're lucky if we get an 8-hour or 9-hour turnaround, and just staying until the project's done. And they just can't fathom the layers of the work that's involved for what we do.
If you weren't a stagehand, what do you think you'd do for a living?
If I wasn't a stagehand, wow, this is really a tough one because I've been a stagehand for so long. But I will tell you that my travel through theater, I had an opportunity to go for an MFA right out of college for design. And I was currently, at the time this was offered to me and I got accepted, I was working as an intern at the Santa Fe Opera. And the times for these programs overlapped by 2 weeks. And at 24, I was so worried about starting an MFA 2 weeks in the hole that I just couldn't commit to it. Even though I had the dean of the department saying, We will work with you. We'll work with you. You should definitely come do this. Because then I could have been designing. And I think that's what I probably would have fallen into if I wasn't a stagehand. If I would have known that my path to professional theater, to the higher echelon of professional theater, would have taken me through labor, I don't know that I would have taken that path back then. The other thing I would maybe do is become a labor leader of some sort, to work with a labor council. I have found it really fruitful to fight for the labor movement, which I never would have seen myself doing. But as a passionate stagehand and seeing the attack on all labor from the current Trump administration, I would see myself easily getting into that fight.
What about the arts? Sorry, how do you feel about the arts?
How do I feel about the arts?
Yeah.
The arts are great and they're vanishing. We have absolutely devastated arts programs in education on a federal level. And now, even in professional theater, we require corporate partnerships to even keep professional theater afloat. So I think that it's sad what's happened to the arts in America, and we have a lot of work to do to turn that around. I don't know what those solutions are, but when I find one I like, I know I'm going to fight for it.
Okay, so here we go. How has the changing state of diversity in the industry affected you personally?
What do you mean by that question? Can you unpack the diversity question more? How has
Do
it
you
changed?
feel
What is the
that
change you're
the
referencing?
changing state of diversity has affected you personally?
Yes, but probably not in the way you think. The changing state of diversity in stagehand realm has been a long time coming. The history of my local is that in 1984, the Democratic National Convention came to the city of San Francisco. And aw snap, we've got an optics problem. Why? Because everyone working in the local was a white male. So they started hiring women in 1984. They started hiring black and brown men in 1984. If you zoom in, that's just 50 years ago. If you zoom out and look at the inception of this local in 1894, that's a long time of work just for white men. Now, I'm not able to choose what plumbing I am born with. And my black and brown brothers and sisters are not able to choose what shade their skin is that they are born with. But that should definitely never be something that disqualifies you from doing creative, artistic, scientific work that you are blessed to have a skill set in. So I am proud of the diversity change going on in stagehanding. And I think that we need to do 1,000 times more to support that and make that equality happen for everybody.
Let's hold for the plate for a second.
Sorry, is that too much? It might be too much.
No, it's
That was
great.
great. My follow-up question to that was, do you feel that you have been treated equally?
No.
Restate the question.
Do I feel that I have been treated equally? Not really, no. Do I feel that I have been treated decently? Most of the time, yes. But as a person who came to the local with a degree in theater, the fact that it took me until 2018 to get a show run at Shorenstein when I started in 2005 and have done theatrical stagehanding work almost my entire life, it seems strange to me that it didn't happen before then. And it lets you know that there is a coveting of these great, well-guarded jobs. And what we are going to face because of that old pattern that we are trying to change now, we are going to face a skill gap if we don't get enough people in there soon enough to pass down the skills from that particular theater. Every theater is different. Every theater has its own little quirks. You got the Golden Gate, you've got this ramp up, you've got the awesome rope thing that Brad does every single time. If we don't get the Brads handing down to the whoever's the next people coming, we're going to have a big skill gap in there. And that goes across all of the trades. We have to share the knowledge before it bites us that we don't have enough people to bring up that gap, because our workflow is only growing. We sit here in the seat of the tech industry giants, and they have global companies that deal with people working in countries from all around the world, first world, second world, third world nations. And these companies have their own departments to manage equality issues. And if we cannot see the model they have set before us and rise up and make that model work for us as well, we are going to look like Neanderthals next to them. I love our theatrical culture. I love how fun it is. I don't want to lose all of the fun, but we absolutely have to stay human. And it touches on all of these equality and diversity issues.
Have you ever experienced sexual harassment on the job site?
Yeah, I have definitely experienced sexual harassment on the job site. Most of the harassment I experienced on the job is more like blatant harassment and bullying. It was never super overtly sexual, but because I'm one woman on a crew of 17 people, it could easily be interpreted that way. But the worst sexual harassment that I did really receive was on the night of my swearing in into this local. There is a tradition in our local that the newly sworn in members will go and buy drinks at the neighboring watering hole that has been their neighboring watering hole the whole time our office has been at its location. And it's like an idea of paying homage to all of these people, these mentors all around you who gave you, who helped train you, give you these skills. And I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to give back. And I don't want to see that tradition die. But I celebrated that night, and I celebrated pretty hard. And when I thought I was safe with a brother to walk me to my car safely, because, hey, let's face it, the streets of San Francisco after midnight are not the safest ones around, especially in the downtown area where we are located. And this brother, in a total betrayal of trust, sexually assaulted me 4 times. And I feel lucky I got out of there, that I regained consciousness before the more serious, obvious end run were to have been accomplished. And it took me a while to deal with it. And then I turned to the only thing I had in my power to deal with it, which was poring over our Constitution and bylaws to see how I could rectify this situation, because I had heard that he had been doing this to other women in our local since the time it happened to me. And I just could not, once I heard that, I had to dig it up and get it out, because I can't, I can suffer what I'm responsible for me. But if I don't tell my story and let this individual continue to go on harassing sisters in this manner, abusing the trust that they have in the thinking that they're having a drink after work with colleagues, discussing the dumpster fire of a show we just left back there and how can we fix it, or just talking about how great a show it was and how well we all did. But for someone to betray the trust of this fraternal organization in such a disgusting way, to then attempt sexual assault of his sisters, it cannot be tolerated. I can't put my name on an organization that supports that, and I won't. And so we had to fight that and try to turn that situation around.
And was it resolved?
This is pretty recent. This happened to me in 2015. We dealt with it in the 2018 calendar year. The reason I was able to deal with it is that I had never spoken about it, because that meant I would have to tell my husband, and maybe he would make me leave this organization I love with all of its great things and terrible things. And I didn't want to leave. I want to see this get better. So we did deal with it administratively. The individual was found guilty by our executive board of sexual harassment and assault that night. And he was fined $2,000. And he was required to take a sexual harassment rehabilitation training. Now, I do not know if those steps have been completed. And so it's on me to hold my leaders' feet to the fire and ask those uncomfortable questions in the only space where we have to do that, which is in our internal meetings. And I will do that.
Are you well represented?
Can you unpack the well-represented question? By what do you mean?
As a union?
I think we are well represented, but I'm pretty young in this local. And I hear these glory stories of days of yore when we got the same as the IBEW brothers. We got the same as 510. We used to get time and a half on Saturdays. We used to get double time on Sundays. I'm not sure where that got negotiated away. It was before my time. But there is a push now to bring that back, at least starting with when we're working composite crews next to these brothers and sisters of other locals in the same four-wall building, which is a four-wall contract. So I see a push moving toward that direction, and I think that there's so much more we could do. We need to have leaders who are willing to go down on any job site and fight for us on the spot. And in order for them to free themselves up from the cumbersome business of running this local, to do that at the drop of a hat, they need to expand the amount of people they let take on that work. And by that, I mean running the local. We are growing at a speed we cannot keep up with. And the only way our leadership is going to be able to tackle that and to continue to get gains for us is to add more bodies to that work. But that is something that continues to be a very tight nexus of people. And we simply can't keep up with ourselves.
Okay, I'm going to ask this next question. I'm going to let you have your answer. Shayna might have some questions. I have to step out for 1 second.
Sure.
Okay. And remember to rephrase this.
Yes.
Where do you see the labor? Hold on. Where do you see the labor movement going in the 21st century?
There we go.
Okay, where do I see the labor movement going in the 21st century is the question posed.
Can you just rephrase that one more time? So I'm not sure I'm shutting the door, interrupted.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the question is, where do I see the labor movement going in the 21st century? I think the labor movement has really had some hard knocks. If you look at the gains that the labor movement made in the FDR days, in the days immediately after that, and then if you look at the history in the next 30 years of how the federal government worked very hard to diminish the power that labor unions had, that progressives had. Suddenly we had the Red Scare, all of the things that people were working together to support the labor movement, the strong anti-war movement, they're all gone. We don't have an anti-war movement in this country. We do maybe have the infancy of one, starting right now with the candidacy of Tulsi Gabbard, who left the Democratic National Committee co-chair because of the dirty, underhanded dealings that the Democratic Party did to Bernie Sanders in the primary. Bernie Sanders has lit a fire under every labor person's ass to stop, notice, and change. And the only way we can do that is by working together in a grassroots movement. This is something that's driven home by a great organization called Labor Notes, which I had the privilege of attending their conference in 2018, which has pretty much inspired me to be a troublemaker, boat rocker, person who is willing to perhaps suffer retaliation, although it shouldn't go on, to fight for what I think is right for the labor movement. And according to Labor Notes, they are the organization that puts the movement back into the labor movement. We've been with a business model for a fee that has been, do business for a fee, meaning I bring my skill to the union, they supply me work, and I pay them a fee, a work fee. And that is our handshake. But they don't really want us asking so many questions about how things are done in there. Or maybe they do, but nobody's interested because we're all so busy trying to just make our nut. But what needs to happen is get tons and tons of people everyone who's working as a stagehand to get involved, to get politically active, to fight for those, to support our brothers and sisters in other labor unions like the Marriott hotel workers, which our leadership did work very hard, and our organizing committee, which I sit on, to support that campaign. So I blame Bernie for lighting a fire under my ass, because there is work I can do here to improve my conditions right now as a member in the labor movement. And I want to see a labor party grow in America. And we have to work together for many a decade before we can make that happen. But it can be done.
Why are unions so important?
Why are unions so important? Let me see. Do you guys relish that thing that happens? It's called Saturday and Sunday for the general population of working people. It's called a weekend. Do you know who fought for that in the streets at the turn of the century? The Women's Trades Union in New York. That is why labor is important. We had Triangle Factory, shirt factory, fires. We had women, stitchers, working in terrible conditions, trapped in there, go to their death. We had the haymaker situation in Chicago. If you look at our history, the labor movement is so important because we cannot give our human rights away. The corporations, if we let them run rampant with their capitalism, there's just no end to what they will sell out. We have to keep it in check. And they can't make any money if we all just work together. If we did a work stoppage like was done in Seattle at the turn of the century, what would happen now? Let's talk about it. What would happen to Amazon? What would happen to the banks? We have to work together so that we can continue to live a decent life in this country and not have the corporations and the run rampant capitalism take away everything so many people have fought and died for in the streets of this country so that we could have working rights. So we have to stand up for them before they're totally gone. That's why I want to see a labor movement grow in America.
Do you feel it's at risk?
Absolutely. It is absolutely at risk right now. Are you kidding me? President Trump, in maybe 7 months into his term, said, I have a great idea. Let's merge the departments of education and labor. There goes any labor budget that we have already. We can't have all these assaults on labor continue to happen. We have to fight for them now or they're going to be gone.
Do you think you'll be a stagehand for a long time?
I would like to be a stagehand for the remainder of my time. I would like to see opportunities get a little bit more equal so that I can feel confident saying that. Because right now, I don't know if I can ever rise to the level where I will be able to trust on getting to manage crews, even though I've done this for so many years, because it's just so hard to keep everybody in balance. But in order to find out how our system is broken, we need transparency to see what it is. And that is something that the body is generally wanting more as time goes on. And so, we will continue to get politically active and try to get leaders in there who will be more transparent.
Is there anything you wanted to add that you haven't been able to say?
Yes.
Okay.
I do want to say that becoming a union stagehand significantly increased the quality of the life that I was living. Before I came to Local 16, yes, I did have one in-house theater gig that was full-time with benefits. But then when I left there and went out on the bounce, as we say, through regional theaters, I was working so hard driving to this theater, that theater, carrying electric stools, this, that, for $15 an hour. And when I had had enough was when I was doing really dangerous work with no health insurance, no regular gig at the theater I was at. And it was after that experience where I had to climb out onto this grid and climb a straight ladder that was like this next to the wall with no harness, no protection, reach out and climb on top of this grid. After that gig, I was like, that's it. I'm going to IATSE. I don't know. And when I went to like a workers' fair. And I didn't know who I was talking to sitting at the Local 16 table, but it happened to be Eddie Raymond, who was then our vice president and head of the training trust. And he said, I had my motorcycle helmet here and I had my resume here. And he said, what's the matter? Are you not having any more fun out there? And I said, well, I don't know if y'all are ready for me, but I think I'm ready for you. And that was the beginning. And I am here 13 years later fighting for more rights for everybody in our local because we have to stand up for each other. We can make it a lot better, but I got to tell you, to get a union wage, to have benefits, to have health benefits, to have a pension, of course, coming to the IATSE, to this labor union, vastly improved the quality of my life, of my pay for the time I am away from my family. And we can continue to build on that, and that's what we need to do.
This is a great interview. What is it with stagehands and motorcycles?
Death-defying acts of daring do comes to mind when I think about stagehands and motorcycles. You know, stagehands, the work we do, it's really hard, it's sweaty, it's dirty, it's metally, it's woody. If it could possibly kill me, if I might burn something down doing it, yes, that's going to be fun. Let's do that. That is the cloth stagehands are cut from. So yeah, of course we're going to choose the way that's going to get us there fastest, despite the fact that it's just two wheels between us and the ground. You know, we like that challenge. We ride on the edge of that challenge all the time. So, but keep it safe, keep it clean.
Are you a thrill seeker?
A little bit, yeah. I grew up next to Cedar Point in Ohio, roller coasters. You know, good times. You got to have fun out there, and if it can almost kill you, the odds are if you survive it, it will be that much more thrilling. So now that I have kids, I'm a little less of a thrill seeker because I know I need to be here to see their graduation. But yeah, gotta have that challenge, gotta have that fun.
Give me your place, your name, and your occupation one more time.
Sure. I'm Joanna Ben-Yisrael. Everybody calls me Joni. I'm a stagehand, I'm a set builder, and I'm an electrician for theater.
Did we ask you what your favorite gig was and what your least favorite
Yeah,
gig was?
we did.
He did.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Recalling him.
Yeah.
Let's cut.
Okay.
Thank you.